Welcome to Small Talk Daily for Wednesday, October 15th, 2008. This morning I thought I'd go through an explanation of how an interface in VisualWorks opens and what points there are in that opening process where you as a developer can intervene. And the place to start looking is ApplicationModel. That is the abstract superclass of most user interfaces. You could go ahead and do something custom, but by and large, if you use the GUI builder or even do things by hand, you'll start here. And this message, pre-build with, does exactly what it says here. It's sent by the builder prior to beginning construction, and at this point you can pretty much do the same kinds of things you would do in an initialize method. You can't really mess with the interface itself because it doesn't even exist yet. And so if you look at the senders of pre-build with, and that's going to happen off screen so you don't really see what I'm checking here. So you look here and you go into application model and you see that what happens is it gets sent after the specification has already been selected. So if you really wanted to mess with the spec itself, you'd have to override interface spec 4 in your subclass and then maybe allow for some dynamic way for that to happen. So in pre-build with, you can do a couple of things, but you can't really get at the spec directly. For that, you'd want to interfere here. Alright, so let's take a look at something else. Let's go ahead and look at all of the implementers of pre-build with and see what kinds of things happen. And you see here menus getting set up in this, aspects being changed. So you can see that you can do things that are pretty much the same kind of thing you would do in an initialize method. The next one you want to look at though is post build with. Again, as the comment says, this is after the construction has happened but before it's actually been displayed. So you can do a lot more here. Let's take a look at the implementers of, or the senders rather, of post build with. And you see here it's sent by all kinds of tools in the system, including a lot I've written here. So taking a look at this one, I can do things like go ahead and enable and disable widgets, and this is commonly done in post build with. Setting up the startup state of widgets on screen, enabling buttons, disabling buttons, doing things that are based on starting state. If I go ahead and take a look at the senders of it, you'll see again here in the all but open interface, everything's been hooked up, so this interface is ready to go, but it hasn't been attached to the window yet, and it hasn't been opened. So what you can't do in this method is anything that would require a physical screen. So if you tried to invalidate a widget, for instance, and force a refresh, it's going to have a problem here because there's nothing to refresh. So finally, that gets you to post open with. This is sent after things are opened, so here you can do things that change the way things display in real time because they're already displayed. And again, if we look at the senders of post open with, you'll come in here and find that it's happening very close to the bottom. The only thing that happens after it is the builder gets returned to the application model subclass you have so you can do something with it. And if we look at the senders of it, you'll find again all over the place. People use this commonly to do things like set things that need to happen after something's already displayed, like set the damage repair policy to double buffering. All of those kinds of things you might want to do once it's already up and running. So in terms of the blog posting tool that we're looking at here, configuring the menus and toolbar requires it to be displayed because of the way that was implemented. So instead of being in post build with, it happens in post open with. So that's kind of a brief overview of those three methods. There's one other thing you ought to be aware of, and that's initialize. And this is a method that all objects, domain objects or GUI objects, get very early, right after new ascent. So it's created and initialize ascent. And what happens here, if you look at this method in posting tool, domain kinds of initializations happen. So anything that doesn't really need GUI access at all, if you just want to set up your domain model and set the state of the domain model, that's where you do these kinds of things. The pre-build with, post-build with, and post-open with, those are the things that you do to affect the state of the running application. So that's pretty much it for today. Until next time, have fun with Small Talk.